A ver qué anuncian. A ver qué anuncia SEA. Bueno, a ver qué anuncian, no, a ver qué muestras más bien. A ver qué muestras. Ahora. Ay, ay. Vale, esto es el teaser que mostraron ya. ¿Es que no lo oís? Si se oye, ¿no? Sí, sí se oye. El trailer completo. A ver, de momento es igual. Córtale los huevos. No, yo creo que no, ¿eh? Yo creo que no es más largo, ¿eh? Ya está. Chapan otra vez. ¿Os imagináis que es inventar a poner fecha de lanzamiento y ya está?
Hi everyone, my name is Philip Sham. I'm senior producer on Dead Space. With me here today is Raman Campos Oguera, the creative director on the project. Hello everyone. Did we get Raman? Toujours. All right, let's get started. So what we're about to do today is a bit unorthodox for us at EA. We're going to give you, with this live stream, a first
Si lo queréis más alto me lo decís, ¿vale?
early, and I'll say very, very early footage. Very, very, very early footage from the game. But we wanted to do this because we want to be open with the communication and open about how we're tackling this game. However, I want to be clear, this is not a gameplay reveal. We're not going to be showcasing very long sections of the game or one full chapters.
No es un gameplay revelation.
Early look at the game that we're making to be able to see reactions across the community about the game that we're making. And there's two reasons why we want to do that. First, at Motives, one thing that really is important for us is that we want to create a game that excites players. And I think that SARS Squadrons was actually a great example of this. It came from the nostalgia that the team had over the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter franchise, and it carried through in the experience that they created. And it's a little bit what we want to do for Dead Space. We see this project, and we want to make sure that we're honoring the legacy, that we stay true to the source, true to the original. And for us, the best way to do that is to engage with the community early on, to be able to give you first look inside, like behind the curtain, and see the game that we're making, and be able to think, to see how we're tackling it.
Sí, sí, ya, mucho, pero la comunidad lo que quiere es ver el puto juego, no cómo trabajáis, sinceramente. O sea, así de claro.
With the community council that we've created, some hardcore Dead Space fans that remain active even after years of inactivity for the Dead Space franchise. And with this community council, we've established a relationship where we gave them first look at some of the executive presentations that we were making within EA, some of the creative brief, game design documents, first playable footage of the game, and in exchange, we asked them brutal feedback, like, what are we making? Is it good? Is it what fans expect out of this remake? Where does it suck? Where does it suck? Like, most importantly. And for this live stream today, we're actually thrilled to have two of the community council members with us, joining us. So, we have
es que yo entendí al principio que no van a mostrar un gameplay, ojo.
Hello Jackie, hi Khalif, how are you?
Han dicho al principio que no. O sea, lo que van a hablar es lo que es el desarrollo, supongo, lo que supone Dead Space, el trabajo que están haciendo y...
I'm Khalif Adams, one of the hosts, or the host of the Spawn on Me podcast. I'm super excited to be here. I'm a huge Dead Space fan.
¿Por qué esa Xbox, porque esa Xbox Series X es más grande que esa PS5? ¿Qué es una nevera? Okay.
Jackie, let the folks at home know a little bit more about you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jackie Butler. I'm a cardiac nurse extern, soon to be RN, as well as a streamer and content creator here on Twitch. Let me tell you, Khalif, Roman, Phil, there's very few games that I wish I could experience for the first time again. One of those is obviously Dead Space. So I'm literally over the moon to be here. No, pun intended, you know what I'm saying? So let's get straight into it and talk about the Dead Space remake.
All right, let's get started.
Pero esto es el original. Esto es original, perros. 2008, ojo. 2008, me cago en Dios. La nevera va a costar 300 euros. Pues... A ver qué pasa con la nevera.
We wanted to recreate with the proxies the full ship, the Ishimura, to recreate it. And then our art team went in and started an added level of details to the environment so that we could have a higher
Este es el diseño nuevo. Este es el diseño nuevo, ¿lo veis?
What can the game look like on next generation of consoles? So we went
La base,
in,
¿no?
added details, then started working on the shaders and the materials to try to have that metallic look that we were after, and just like to get the right materials out of the environment. From there, we did like a first pass at lighting to try to get the mood right, because the atmosphere of Dead Space is pretty much on lighting, and then on VFX to try to get like that full picture of what are we after, what are we trying to achieve for the game. And it looks great on a few stills, but it actually looks way better in game.
So what type of engine did you guys use to create this, and what graphics are you aiming for?
So, great question, Jackie. We're using Frostbite as our dev engine, and we're going for, obviously, high-end graphics, high-end fidelity.
Bueno, algo que se sabía, ¿no? Que usan el Frostbite Engine.
Lighting, VFX,
El motor
and
Frostbite.
just overall audio experience to make sure that we would deliver the right atmosphere, something that was key in the original game.
Yeah, so I know we have
Oye, no lo digas muy alto, a ver si EA va a cerrar también el Motive Studio, para hacer un remake de Visceral Games.
So yes, that's super early, like it's...
Vale, entiendo que esto es gameplay. Esto es el escenario en gameplay. Se ve guay. Se ve guay. La ventaja que tiene el juego es que es un juego muy oscuro. Esa es una cosa que juega a su baza, ¿no? Es un juego oscuro y tal. Y eso juega a su baza. Se ve guay. Se ve guay. Esto es in-game.
That rig, that armor, it's not the original, it's a new one, it's still work in progress, it's gonna be improved a lot, but it gives a first taste at Isaac Clarke.
Sigue en desarrollo, Dejan claro que sigue en desarrollo, pero es un first look. ¿Está bien? Está bien, entonces sí muestran un gameplay, cabrones. Un pequeño gameplay. Dios, esa textura, ¿veis la textura del traje? Dios. Bueno, entiendo que todo eso va a corregirse, ¿no? Evidentemente. Vale, esta parte es igual, el tío ese que está dándose cabezazos.
So, one thing that's important for us, and that's why it's for PS5, Xbox Series, or for PC, is that
puede ser, poco más retocado, sin más. Sí, salvo el escenario,
to create that original but still new experience, whether it's the new lighting and ray tracing, whether, like Phil mentioned, it's about audio, whether it's improvements to gameplay and having new zero-G, or as you're going to see maybe later, improvements and dismemberment and how you actually deal damage to the enemies, whether it's about having an unbroken and continuous experience. It's about doing a lot of improvements and how we enrich that experience. And so that's really what that remake is about.
Un remake, pues lo que es mejorado gráficamente y jugablemente y poco más.
The game already stood the test of time. This is still considered to be quote unquote a perfect game.
Sí, no es. Que si falta mínimo un año para que salga, pues me parece comprensible.
It's to capture that original ambience, that original experience, but like you've never experienced before, and that's really the age we're after, I believe.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, like we want to make sure that we're honoring the legacy. That's one of our production pillars that we have for the game. But at the same time, we want to make it relevant for today. Like the games have evolved a lot, since the original Dead Space came out. From obviously graphics, which is like the easiest way to see how
Dice que los juegos han evolucionado mucho.
Not easiest necessarily to make.
Well, no, not easiest to make. No, that's for sure. But as far as systems, as far as just opportunities for gameplay and how to leverage it, that's something that we think that, given the evolution that Dead Space had within its own franchise with Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, but also how the franchise, how just the game industry evolved outside Dead Space, there's opportunities for us to make a better, a more complete experience, let's say.
Sí, bueno, a ver cómo hacéis la experiencia más completa, porque yo recuerdo que el gameplay de Dead Space era bueno, o sea, no es que yo lo jugué después, ahora un par de años y no lo noté tosco, para nada.
We might keep some surprise for later. Yes.
So, can you please now show the stat comparison of the original 2008 game versus the current?
Qué guay se ve ahí, hostias. Hostias. Hostias, chaval. Wow, esa puta imagen. Dios bendito, tío, Wow. Wow, esa imagen de abajo, tío. Esa imagen sí ya es terminado, evidentemente. Esa imagen no es lo que hemos visto antes, Wow. Ya veremos a ver si es así, Que no me parecería extraño, Hombre, el gameplay yo lo recuerdo bueno, puedes mejorarlo pues a nivel de input lag y todo esto, ¿no? Pero el gameplay era bueno. Yo creo que es bueno incluso a día de hoy. Lo que es la configuración de botones y eso. Pero esa imagen ha sido brutal, Esa comparativa ha sido espectacular.
Like I said, by making it relevant, we're looking at different games and what they did and see how can we bring it back inside Dead Space. So, like, one of the example is something that we're trying to do is to have an unbroken experience, to make the game fully seamless. And how can that create an experience where the players even more immersed within the game than was previously the case?
And it's really one of the big objectives that we have for that game is that from even before the start screen till the end of the game, the rolling credits, to never have any break of experience, to have that full and uninterrupted sequence shot. And so that, of course, has a lot of impact on what we're building, and just starting with how the Ishimura and the structure of the game is built, because we don't want.
Vale, lo que dicen, si no recuerdo mal, si no he entendido mal, lo que dicen es es que Dead Space, al igual que el último God of War, estaba hecho en una, ¿cómo se llama? En plano secuencial. O sea, no había tiempos de carga. No había tiempos de carga que te sacaran del juego. Los tiempos de carga que habían eran pues un ascensor o un transportador, pero no dejabas de jugar. Y eso evidentemente lo van a mantener. Es que tampoco veo yo ahí la sorpresa, ¿no? Tampoco veo yo ahí la noticia. La noticia sería que no lo fuesen a mantener.
Really focus in on what makes Dead Space fantastic around the horror aspect of the game too. I'd love to hear more about that.
So of course, horror it's one of the main pillar of Dead Space, and it's about a lot of elements in Dead Space. So of course, the story it's about that. It's that iconic survival horror story. You're alone, trapped on that hulking spaceship, but the main element for us was to get the ambience right, and so that's why we started with elements like, for example, the Banger Corridor or the workshop that you can see in the teaser, is to make sure that we capture the ambience. It's about more than just the gore or the monsters or the story or the character. It's really about the Ishimura and how isolated and stressed you feel when you're inside that ship. And so that's really an important pillar for us. And so that's
dicen que lo más importante para ellos es mantener la esencia de terror, la esencia de estrés que genera el Ishimura y todo esto, de estar solo.
so good. Like it was a masterclass in pacing, the original Dead Space, to keep you on the edge of your seat all the time. And that's actually something that we challenged the team early on. Like, how can we make sure that we don't break that recipe, that we don't break the right amount of...
Ahora, es que para eso, ¿sabéis lo que tenían que hacer? Para eso es tan sencillo como, primero, mejorar los gráficos, ya, porque el Dead Space es bueno, el Dead Space es excepcional, es un juego excepcional, de los mejores juegos que existen de miedo. Ya simplemente mejorando el apartado gráfico para una nueva generación, incluso para los que lo jugaron, es ya suficiente. Ahora, yo pienso que un punto obligatorio para que pueda transmitir algo similar en su momento es cambiar de sitio los sustos. No, tal vez no todos, pero sí bastantes sustos, cambiarlos de sitio, algunos comportamientos y scripts cambiarlos de sitio, cosas así. Que alguien que lo ha jugado ya no pueda vérselo venir, un susto. Eso me parece obligatorio que tienen que hacerlo. Me parece obligatorio. Vale, ¿van a mostrar la desmembración nueva o esta es la antigua? Yo en principio no creo que sea muy distinta, ¿eh?
Because we're so early with it, visually we're not at the right level of quality where we want to achieve, but we want to showcase functionality here. That's what we want to talk about, and what is the system that we have in mind for peeling, like you said.
So obviously, same thing, it's a really early build, it's a gym.
Estaría bien que mostraran una comparativa haciendo lo mismo. Si han hecho cambios en el sistema de... A eso es a lo que voy. Si han hecho cambios en la desmembración, en el desmembramiento, tendrían que mostrar una comparativa para que se viese bien.
One thing we wanted to, and those are the things you can say only on Dead Space. One of the thing we wanted to improve about that experience is when you're using a weapon that is not a carving weapon, like something not like the plasma cutter. Plasma cutter is really fun to use. You can just shoot at anything, and really you have that instant feedback of.
Ahora es dinámico. ¿Te refieres a que se superponen, ¿no? los? ¿Te refieres a eso? Que se superponen los... el puntero del arma, ¿no? Vale. Vale, lo que han hecho, lo que yo entiendo que han hecho es las partes de desmembramiento, las partes que se desmiembran son las mismas, pero les quitas la carne. Los primeros disparos quitan la carne, ¿lo veis? Quitan los primeros músculos. Y entonces ya el segundo disparo es lo que parte la pierna o el brazo. Eso es lo que han hecho. Exactamente. Puedes despedazar, puedes quitarle músculos. Eso está guay. Eso está guay. Eso está guay. Está guay. Eso es algo que pasa ya, por ejemplo, en Doom. Por ejemplo. Está bien. No sé, ya os digo yo que se despedace como se despedace, yo voy a seguir disparando a las piernas. O sea, yo no sé quién cojones va a disparar al cuerpo. Eso se dispara a las piernas para tirarlos al suelo, tío. O sea, suelo, 3 tiros, 2 tiros y después a la cabeza, muerto, ya está. The precision, and not only the precision of my weapon, but as an example, the precision of the plasma cutter. And so, if I was to shoot, let's say, on that leg, then if I'm shooting here, I'm not going to cut the leg. Ah. I'm not shooting at the place where the bone is actually visible. Entiendo. Se refiere a que no toda la pierna es la misma, evidentemente. O sea, para que se parta la pierna, tienes que dispararle en el mismo sitio. En el Dead Space original, si disparabas en el muslo y después disparabas en el pie, le partías directamente la pierna. Pues aquí no. Entiendo qué es lo que quiere decir, ¿no? Tienes que dispararle en el mismo sitio para partir esa parte, esa misma zona. Eso añade dificultad, exacto. Añade dificultad porque requiere más puntería. Está bien, me gusta ese cambio. Me parece bueno. Me parece buen cambio. Más que un cambio es un añadido, es una mejora. Diría más bien que es una mejora. Más que un añadido. Me gusta.
You do a meeting about dismemberment and blood and gore and dead bodies, and you misspell somebody's name and you're inviting somebody else to that meeting that is not part of the team, and they go like,
doy por hecho que será 60, o sea, es inaceptable que vayas a 30. Es inaceptable.
So Roman, on what level can we expect the detail of filleting necromorphs, essentially? How detailed are we talking here?
Vale, ahora vamos a hablar del nivel de detalle de los enemigos.
It's going to be really super detailed, as we can see on that video. So that's the first steps of that technology. If the video is playing, which is not, I think, at the moment. Yes, here we go. You can see that it's really super precise. It's exactly where you're aiming, where you're shooting. It's exactly respecting the shape of the projectile at the enemy. If it was fire, you would see it going through the body of your enemy and burning the flesh, etc. It's the peeling, that body destruction system is going to be super precise. In terms of pure dismemberment,
O sea, tiene hecha calavera. Tiene hecha calavera, no solo el diseño de carne. O sea, tiene diseñado esqueleto.
It was already really deep in terms of gameplay. Like there are different behavior based.
Tiene diseñado el esqueleto por debajo de la piel y la carne.
So here our goal is for enemies like slasher. It's not necessarily to improve or give more precision where you cut. You can cut the enemy. It's more to try to.
Bueno, no sé cómo de habitual será eso.
That fun
No lo sé.
depth to other enemies that tend to be a bit lighter in terms of dismemberment and behavior, like for example the infector or the brute. Like I can't wait to show
Claro,
you.
tú puedes verlo de forma distinta.
And you start to peel his
A mí, por
back.
ejemplo, como te dedicas a esto, como sabes hacer esto, pues lo ves de forma distinta.
Get to the weak points.
Yeah, I love the peeling of the different layers of skin down to the organs and bones, especially coming from a medical background. It's just insane to see. The level of expectation is very
Pero está
much
guay,
up
tío,
here,
que
you know,
tenga
we'll-
calavera hecha. O sea, que tenga el esqueleto hecho o sea, que tiene esqueleto, o sea, no es... Está bien. Está guay.
We want to experience a bit more. We want to dig a bit more. It's
Claro, eso supongo está hecho para que a la hora de disparar, cuando tú le disparas, rompes la carne y entonces se ve el esqueleto debajo.
the limb to go out and fly away. And sometimes we keep it attached by the layer of flesh or tendrils to the body. So currently that VFX is missing, but the technology to keep it attached and dangling is there. And so you can grab those with kinesis to make it a bit faster to dismember them, and then you can throw them back to the opponent. I think we'll speak a little bit more about kinesis after, but that's also the power and weapon synergy loop. That's also something we want to try to improve in the Dead Space remake.
Yeah, by bringing it back, like it gives you an option to. We actually took back the
Qué guapa la chica.
Space 2, so it gives you an option to actually impale
Bastante
your enemies
guapa.
that's right in front of you and using it as a projectile against your enemy. So it gives you more creative opportunities to kill your enemies, really.
So that means that we're gonna go from we're gonna continue to have cut off your limbs, and we're gonna have dangle your limbs too. Be the thing that people are gonna start screaming in the chat pretty soon. One of the other, you talked about, how some of these pieces of tech are adding to the improvements of what this remake is going to wind up being. I'd love to hear you kind of talk a little bit more about, some other improvements that we've seen, not only in scale in terms of, rooms that we've seen before. We saw the headbanger room a second ago, but I want to dig into, and let's pull up the 0G therapy room, which I think also showcases this kind of next layer.
Vale, esto es otra parte mejorada que otro escenario.
Just talk a little
Vale,
bit
esto
about,
es
you know,
el primer escenario
where you
en
kind of see
gravedad
Isaac
cero
kind of
que
in
tenemos, si no
space
recuerdo
right
mal, ¿no?
now, floating around the space, probably going to show off some of his thrusters and stuff in a minute. I'd love to hear more about, you know, kind of where you're thinking about in terms of improvements in this layer too.
Se ve guay.
So, for us, really, going back to the original Dead Space, it was something that we felt again,
Está sin hacer el
build,
cubo, ¿no?
that we felt we could actually improve in terms of experience and immersion. It's the zero-G and how you would move around in zero-G, and that's something that was really good and improving the experience in Dead Space 2 and 3 that we felt was really missing in
Hombre, han
zero-G.
cambiado el diseño,
And so
han cambiado el dibujo
why
de
we
los
took that
de los
mechanic
objetos.
of flying around when you're in zero-G and with much more 360-degree freedom. And now you can play Dead Space and really feel you're in space during those moments. And so also that's a mechanic that we're starting to improve a bit on. Like for example, now you can interact as you fly around.
Se ve muy guay, ¿eh?
Tighter corridors, those kind of things. But
Se ve muy
also,
chulo, tío.
it allows us
Se ve brutal.
to revisit some of the old contents and create new ways to
Tiene que verse brutal. Muy, 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 muy mal tienen que hacerlo para que no
navigate
sea visualmente
through,
espectacular, dado también
and here it allows
los elementos que
us
tiene el
to
juego,
create
la oscuridad y eso.
environments
Muy mal tienen que hacerlo para que no se vea de la
new
hostia.
challenges to surprise also the people
Se ve que te
that
cagas.
know the game and
Se ve muy
will
bien.
be like, oh wait, what's that? What's this? And now we're gonna surprise you.
So it's really delivering on the fantasy of being in space, making sure that we're able
Se ve que te
to
cagas,
use that
tío.
and revisiting all the places in the game in the original where there was zero-G, which was the Superman jump back in Dead Space 1, and now applying full 360 motion and finding ways to provide a real challenge in those
Se
type
ve
of
guay.
environment.
Se ve muy, muy,
And
muy
so
guay.
far, there's been very good ideas like this one about how can we retraverse through the same environment and provide something new for the players. So we're definitely on the lookout for these opportunities when we revisit each of these.
A ver si dicen algo de frame rate. Yo doy por hecho que va ahí a 60. O sea,
Yeah, for me,
es
in the
inadmisible
original
que vaya a
game, that
menos.
zero-G jump was very disorienting. I don't know if anyone else agrees with this, but it made me very disoriented. So seeing quality of life improvements carried from 2 back into 1 with the thrusters and the movement is incredible. That's a huge improvement as is. You know, it's funny. The community quickly recognized and deciphered the Morse code from the Ishimura in the original reveal that we had. People figured it out right away. From the blinking.
Sí, hay
flashlights.
algunas
You know, we
ralentizaciones.
didn't
Sí.
see any comments on the subreddit or online about the thrusters on Isaac. There was
Right?
nothing. Where was that? Look
Maybe it was
alive,
too
chat.
subtle,
Like,
but
but yeah.
But no, it's really interesting because then also, like I was mentioning, it allows us to revisit to the zero-G areas, potentially create new ones, and add a whole set of different challenges, in that were not present in Dead Space 1, that we can now create or recreate because you have all that freedom of motion across that one big ship.
Yep. There was also one question and topic that was prevalent throughout the community that we saw time and time again, and that is the topic of microtransactions. You know, they were apparent in Dead Space 3, so at this point, can you please be transparent and honest regarding microtransactions, and you know, if that will make an appearance in Dead Space 1 Remake?
so very, very clear, no microtransaction. None at all.
Vale.
No.
Le he preguntado si va a haber microtransacciones. Ha dicho que no.
Already in an interview, I
Al menos de momento no. Al menos
don't have that.
en este remake no. Si llegan al remake del 3, igual sí. Bueno, eso lo he dicho yo, ¿eh? Eso lo he dicho yo.
Everybody in the
This time
chat,
it's-
everybody in the
Igual si llegan al remake del 3, igual sí.
It's on the
I hope
record
the
now,
crowd is
so
going
Pero al 1 no.
That's what we want to hear, okay?
That's 2 back-of-the-box quotes that we've gotten for the stream already. That's easy, well done. We've talked a lot about the improvements, things you kind of want to transition, ways you want to improve not only the gameplay but all the systems around it. But I think one of the things we haven't gotten a chance to talk about is how do you want to enrich the storytelling in this game as well? There's lots of different aspects to that, and I'd love to hear more thoughts about how you're trying to broaden and expand that as well.
Vale, habla de la historia y de cómo lo va a
About
expandir.
the
Entendido.
story and narrative as a broader topic in Dead Space. First, we are not going to change the foundation of the story because
No van a cambiar la historia.
is really iconic and
No van a cambiar la historia, eso antes de nada.
great sci-fi horror story. It's really about being Isaac and going into that hulking spaceship and feeling alone and isolated as you try to survive all those space zombies and stuff, and trying to find Nicole, trying to solve that mystery about the marker and stuff. All of those core themes of the originals, those are elements that not only we really want to continue to have in the game, but that we want to build on top of. The things that we want to enrich in terms of story or narrative, it's really about the bigger universe of Dead Space. We want to have more ties with what came after, whether it's the books, whether it's the anime, whether it's Dead Space 2. We want to put back the original
Vale.
in a more in a better way, if I can say.
Van a añadir cosas que pueden verse en un futuro. Van a añadir nuevos detalles.
Message or the audio links or message in the environment. Sometimes
Cosas del anime, cosas de algún libro que haya habido, del Dead Space 2. Cosas que puedan relacionarlo, cosas que puedan expandir la historia.
on some of the characters around Isaac, whether it's Kendra or Ammon. And one thing for me that's really important in Dead Space is, as Isaac in the story, you're looking for Nicole, but actually in game, not so much, as we can say. So that's something we want to improve. We want to give you the means to actually look for her, and more than look for her, learn what happened to her during the outbreak. That's one of the elements that we're gonna not necessarily improve in the story, but enrich and that we want to add in the lore.
Sino lo que entiendo es que van a añadir también, o al menos es lo que entiendo, van a añadir más, contar más lo que le pasa a Nicole a lo largo de la historia. Contar lo que le pasa a la novia.
Bringing up some of those elements into kind of a next layer that we'll be able to get a chance to see. I'm just hyped to see where that's all going to land, because it's just going to be so cool to see what things, when you do that one-to-one comparison, it's like, oh, that thing got changed, got added.
Uy.
Yeah, I definitely had same questions on like my first playthrough and the many other times. It's like, what about the marker? What
Exactamente, por eso dicen que van a añadir cosas que se han visto ya del Space, de la serie de animación y tal. Lo van a añadir en el juego para expandir el contenido. Me parece bien.
Council privileges. One of the other and kind of big questions that a lot of folks in the community have been wondering about, have been thinking about, and hopefully you'll be able to give us an answer on this one is, will Isaac be voiced in this game?
Well, that's a good question.
Excuse me, I have something to say.
Oh, what?
Dios, ¿es Dios?
Excuse me, I have something to say. And it's been a long time coming.
¿Quién es?
Hi, I'm Gunnar Wright, and I'm excited to announce that I'm reprising my role as Isaac Clarke.
Ah, vale, es el actor de doblaje inglés en Dead Space.
I want to thank all of you for allowing me to give Isaac a voice. I can't wait to suit up, throw that rig on, and do my best to try to keep Isaac alive. Although I've got a feeling some of you might try to keep me from doing that. In the words of Isaac Clarke, stick around. I'm full of bad ideas.
Perfecto. Aquí supongo que repetirá. En España supongo que elegirán al mismo. Me gusta mucho la... Ah, es verdad. Entonces, en el Dead Space 1 va a hablar. ¿En el 1 hablaba? No hablaba en el 1, no hablaba en el 1, ¿verdad? Isaac no hablaba en el 1. Entonces van a añadir diálogos a Isaac. Hablaba en el 1, es que no me suena, Igual me estoy colando, pero es que no me suena que hablara, No me suena que hablara, Si no me equivoco, entonces...
question, like, or should we voice them for this remake or not? Should we stay? Which is why, like, we engage in that conversation with all the folks on council to try to see what, from your perspective, what was your opinion on this key topic? And what was clear was that, well, if he's back, it has to be Isaac. It has to be Gunnar.
Es que entonces, lo que decía, si no me equivoco, entonces van a añadir líneas de diálogo a Isaac, cosa que no tenía el en 1.
It became very, very clear rapidly that for us, that was the right angle to tackle this topic.
Yes, for me, it's so first, as a fan of Dead Space, before even being on that project, it was, yeah, Gunnar is Isaac. And revisiting Dead Space 1, amazing game, and revisiting Isaac, for me...
Está todo el rato diciendo lo mismo, tío. La mayoría del tiempo dice lo mismo. Prácticamente dice todo el rato lo mismo. Pero de diferente forma.
But one thing
Joder.
that is really important for us, there is something that is key in the Dead Space theme and ambience. It's the isolation.
Exactamente.
You're alone on that spaceship.
Otra vez.
Alone facing those enemies. It's really that feeling of being isolated.
Me muero, tío.
And sometimes hearing a voice, it fights against that. Like, you know, you're going to the basement, it's dark, and you're looking for the light, and you talk to yourself because it's reassuring, especially when you're alone in the dark. And so that's something we didn't want it to break in Dead Space. And so Isaac is only going to talk. One of the rules that we have is that Isaac is only going to talk when he's being talked to. He is going to respond, he's going to engage with Eamon, he's going to engage with Kendra, and so on. Is going to be part of those discussions.
Vale, que va a hablar consigo mismo, según la situación y tal, pues va a hablar. Es lo que estoy entendiendo, ¿eh?
He's not going to talk. He's not going to break that immersion. He's not going to break that feeling of isolation. But one thing that was important for us, for Isaac as a character, is he's not a space marine. He's a really specific type of character. Not only is Isaac, but also he's an engineer. And so we really wanted to give him more a sense of being the main character of that story, giving more sense of agency on what's going on. And so
Exactamente.
when there's a new
Era algo que no me
objective,
gustaba
when
del
there's
1.
discussion about how are we going to blow that barricade, how are we going to restart the engine of the ship, we wanted Isaac to be part of that discussion.
Va a añadirle cosas que den la sensación, dice que Isaac no es un marine espacial. Dicen que quieren añadirle, entiendo que a través de los diálogos quieren añadir que dé más sensación de que es más un ingeniero, que es lo que es. Que es lo que quieren hacer. Y va a hablar solo cuando hable con gente, que hay muchas veces que te hablan en el juego, te están hablando y Isaac no habla, y después pues yo que sé, estás andando y parpadea una luz y ahí va a decir algo, ¿no? Lo típico. Sí, pero lo van a incrementar. Se va a incrementar porque supongo que, yo que sé, si alguien te dice algo, pues entonces Isaac dirá algo, yo que sé, un tecnicismo o algo relacionado con el trabajo que hay que hacer. Entiendo que eso es a lo que se refiere.
You're a close second, Khalif. Close second.
See, this is why I love you. I appreciate. See, this is again another back of the box.
Honest.
Again, this is the reason why we do this kind of work. We're almost out of time, but I want to give you two gents a little bit of time just to share again any last thoughts you have with the folks here watching the chat and everybody else out in the land who are Dead Space fans right now.
Yeah, well, one thing, like I said at the beginning, the purpose for us to do this.
Otra vez, one thing desde el principio, una cosa desde el principio.
So hopefully we've shown a few assets, we've talked about the game. Hopefully that triggers some discussion that we're able to look and see and understand what's important for the community. So that's really the purpose for us, and we hope that the community is going to engage so that we can get that feedback back.
And another important element really for us is that we've started a little bit less than a year now on that project, and we start to have some amazing things, I think, and its production is just starting, and I'm incredibly amazed and proud of everything the team is doing. Like, it's one of the most amazing teams I've worked with, and I want to thank them again and again for everything they're doing. And not only because I do believe it's amazing, but also because it's really difficult time for building all of those things in that context of the pandemic and working from all and all those things. And so being able to see all those assets, all those arts, the gameplay they are building in that context, I'm just like, wow, I'm blown away. Like,
The team's amazing.
thank you very much, guys.
That was a really beautiful concept art you had on the screen there. It was medical. It was stunning. I can't wait for everyone to see that in the actual game shipped.
Yes.
This is so pretty. I want this
so
as a desktop background.
Right? Seriously. I don't want to live there, but I want that as a piece of my desktop art for sure.
Yeah.
We can hook you up, Jackie. We can hook you up.
Nice.
Ha dicho la chica que no puede esperar, que ha mostrado ese artwork y que no puede esperar a ver el juego, cómo se ve en esa parte.
Wonderful time, and I want to thank Motive and EA, for allowing Khalif and I to be a part of this wonderful community. Thank you, Roman and Phil, and also thank you all those unsung heroes, on the dev team working hard to make this ship for the best possible thing, So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'll just end out and say again, Phil and Roman and the rest of the team, you all are putting in such great work to bring this game back to life in a fantastic way. I, as a huge fan, am extremely excited to dangle their limbs and do all of those things within that game. And we hope that also our friends and our compadres over in the council as well. We hope we did you proud today. Everybody at home who's watching the
No he hecho nada gracioso, es que me estoy riendo sin más.
Twitter account, you can get some more updates when they
Ya se están
go live.
despidiendo ya.
And again, thank you so much for being here today. Take care and we'll see you.
De nada.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Ha estado bien, ha estado bien. Ha estado bien. Yo pensaba al principio, oye, mostrar un poco de gameplay y tal. Después al principio han dicho, no, vamos a mostrar un gameplay, no sé qué, no sé cuántas. O al menos os he entendido, pero han mostrado un par de veces un par de partes de cómo va el juego y se ve guay, se ve guay. Entonces sí han mostrado algo, que es lo que yo quería. Podría haber sido peor, por supuesto que podía haber sido peor. Podían no haber dicho nada. Podían no haber mostrado nada. O sea, si no llegan a mostrar nada, hubiera sido una mierda. Si no hubiese mostrado nada, pero han mostrado algo, con lo cual ahí lo han diversificado un poco, ¿no? Tal vez podía haber durado... ¿Cuánto ha durado? 42 minutos. Podía haber durado 10 minutos menos. Podía haber durado 10 minutos menos porque ha habido mucho relleno, mucho texto, como se suele decir, mucho texto. Pero bueno. Pero bien, se ha visto. Que es lo más importante, que se ha visto. Los cambios a los necromorfos, esto cómo se van a poder despedazar, está bien, un buen añadido, una buena mejora. Y ya está, tiene buena pinta. Ya no han dicho nada del frame rate, así que, pero bueno, eso se irá sabiendo conforme se acerque la fecha de lanzamiento y dan detalles, pues ya se sabrá. Yo digo que sale el año que viene. Como mucho, y ya me parecería mucho, tratándose de un remake, principios de 2023. Pero yo digo que sale el año que viene.